We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the HaltingWinter podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the HaltingWinter podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Chase Bruton, town manager in Yorktown, Indiana, past president of the Indiana Municipal Management Association. It's going to be a great conversation. Chase, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on today.
Thank you for reaching out and having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we got to get more Indiana municipal leaders on. That's my goal in the year ahead. You know, we just had Ben Lips on, town manager over in Cumberland. He's the current IMA president. His episode is 290. And I have an affinity. That's not the right word. I have a, what's the word? A connection,
affinity.
We'll say. Affinity, yeah. That's what I was looking for, and it wasn't working. The good old English language for a professional speaker. I should have that down. And so I have this connection to Indiana. When I was in Springfield, Missouri doing my undergrad, we used to go up for Thanksgiving. We had a couple friends who lived in Indiana, and so they'd invite us up because, again, we could drive. You know, I lived out in Seattle. I wasn't going to fly home for Thanksgiving and then back for a couple weeks before Christmas break. So so I spent some time in Indiana, and it's a fascinating place. I've been back a couple times professionally in Indianapolis, a great, cool city. But I want to learn more about these unique places all over this state. The Midwest is such a fascinating place. You think, you know, us West Coast or probably East Coast, we think it's all just rural cornfields, and it's got a lot more going on. So it's going to be fun today to hear where you've been in your municipal journey. But before we get to your professional career, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born, and what did your childhood look like growing up? How did it influence this path into city management?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Los Angeles in 1992. That was a rough year to be in Los Angeles. So with that happening, my family made the decision to move. And at that time, my parents were married. And so we ended up moving to Bloomington, Indiana. It sounds kind of random, but my dad had the opportunity for a sales job in the Midwest, and he needed to be somewhere kind of centrally located. And at that time, Bob Knight was the basketball coach of Indiana University. So he flew into Indianapolis, drove down to Bloomington, took a look at it and said, this is perfect. And that's somehow how we ended up there. And so my family is still there. And so my mom's still there. I moved my grandfather there. He's in a retirement community there. And my little brother, Cole, lives there as well. So I still have a deep connection to Bloomington.
So fascinating how it's kind of like, you know, your story, I'm sure, is kind of mirroring a lot of the young people during COVID. You know, a lot of people who lived, especially on the coast or in, you know, very, you know, big Seattle. We had a ton of people that, in fact, U-Haul stopped letting people use their U-Hauls to move because they had so many U-Hauls in Idaho and in Montana. They had none like coming back. And so they were like, no more. So I wonder if that'll be a similar story, right? Something happens and then it's like we got to get to a new scenario, got to get to a new place. But that's a pretty dramatic change going from LA. How old were you when you left?
I was 2 when they finally made the move. So, I mean, Bloomington was really all I knew growing up.
Yeah.
But obviously that's a big change for, my mother and those sort of things. So.
Yeah. So what is it like? What was it like growing up in the Midwest? Give us a scene of what life was like. Again, were you in the city? Were you out in kind of more of the rural parts? What did your parents do? What did that look like?
Yeah, so my parents got divorced when I was pretty young, so I ended up growing up in a single parent household. Obviously, I have a younger brother; he's 7 years younger than me. We are right on the outskirts of Bloomington, Indiana, so we're like right on the edge of the city line. So it's still a pretty urbanized area, but kind of a quieter, working class neighborhood. But Bloomington is an interesting city as far as Indiana goes because of the university. Obviously, Indiana University brings a lot of diversity, a lot of different cultures in. So there's a lot of things happening in Bloomington, and it's kind of a weird, quirky city. It's very artsy, which is really different than a lot of the places you'll run into throughout the rest of Indiana. But yeah, growing up, I had pretty basic, childhood. I played team sports. I was a baseball player, basketball player, football player, up until about high school, and then I played rugby a little bit, and so just came from a working class family when I was very young. My mom kind of had that instilled hard work in us, work ethic, and so I was an umpire when I was 11 years old, and I was washing dishes when I was 16, and so it was a very good upbringing. I always had a very supportive mother and a good community around me. Really big on my formative years.
Okay, a couple things. This is fascinating. I remember having a conversation with Stan Reno, city manager, and I think it's Carbondale, Illinois. They have a major university there. And it's interesting, these cities, especially Midwest, they're kind of like, they got a conservative feel. They got an kind of like, I remember when I went to Springfield from, I grew up an hour north of Seattle. I grew up in a very rural ranch environment, very conservative environment. But when I went to Springfield, I thought I literally went into a time warp machine. I mean, again, this is back in the 90s, so you didn't have really the internet was just coming out. And so it's not like we have today a very much more interconnected world where it seems like everyone kind of fashion and everything lives kind of in the same plane. I thought I had moved to the 1950s. Like they were like, oh yeah, we can't go to movie theaters. That's where like the devil happens. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like it was just the most bizarre cultural experience for me. But like you say, when you've got a university, especially as big as IU, I mean, that is a hub of thinking, of ideas, and it really has an impact. And again, the size, I mean, what was IU's size when we're going to talk about this in your story, your undergrad MPA there. What was the size of IU? Because what's the size of Bloomington? Do you know the population? And then what the university
population is about 60,000, and then it doubles during the school year. And so it's one of those, it's one of those cities where it gets real crazy on move-in week and all of that. And it was really interesting because just growing up, I was in school with a lot of students whose parents were professors or those sort of things affiliated with the university in some way. So you got a little different feel in Bloomington than you would demographically in the rest of Indiana.
So I had Milton Bradley on. He's the city administrator in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so, Michigan University, I mean, it's just like, that's like having the Pope in your backyard, it's just so big for Michigan and such a huge campus and just it is such a unique reality when it comes to, but these are the things oftentimes people don't think about with municipal management. With you lead a city, talking about having a mini city within your city, and it's the same size as your city. That's crazy to think about the infrastructure needed. And you're not talking about, we'll just say like, I think there's probably a little bit of chaos that comes along with college students, right?
There is. They have their own police department for a reason.
Right, exactly. Oh man. Okay. So you're growing up. I want to mention another thing that you said there. Your mom, single mom, so she's instilling you kind of this work ethic. You mentioned umpiring. Was that connected to the city at all? Was that usually, we had a city manager on a few episodes ago, and they said that was their first job, and they had no idea it was connected to the city. They were actually working for the city while they were umping, part of Parks.
Yeah. So it was through the Parks and Rec department. This is back before, child labor laws were a big thing. I don't even think we had to fill out paperwork. I think it was cash, I mean, it was a great job. It was $20 a game. If it was an hour, it was 40. If it was two, when you're 11 or 12 years old, that money's flowing in. So my mom, at one point I had a beeper, and then I upgraded to a cell phone, but I would ride my bike in my little umpire uniform down to the municipal baseball fields. And I loved that job because it came with free popcorn and free hot dogs and as many fountain drinks as you wanted. So, I mean, I would just go and hang out at the baseball fields, and if somebody no-showed, I'd take over a game. Really good activity to kind of keep you out of trouble and keep you honest. It really, I've joked with people about this before. It really gives you the skill set to be able to deal with difficult people. And you learn that at an early age. When you're 11 or 12 and you're having to deal with yelling parents and an angry coach and those sort of things, it's a good skill set to get early on. You don't get as intimidated in this position when you've been dealing with those people since you were a kid.
That's right. I mean, what a skill too, especially in your line of work today, where people have emotional outbursts. It's not that we encourage it or even it's only gotten more intense. It seems, especially in sports. It's just like, dude, your kid is like, let me just be honest with you. Your kid is not going to make it past junior.
Your kid's not an all-star, all right? Like, let's dial it back a little bit. Yeah, I've noticed that lack of civility that's kind of come through, and it really seemed like it happened during and after COVID, and it really hasn't calmed itself down. And I like social media. I use social media myself, but it gets really nasty when you don't have to say things to people's faces. And so that's kind of something that we've even talked about in the Municipal Management Association here in Indiana is how can we kind of try to bring back that civility in town halls or in, just in personal dealings with residents and citizens. And so, there's things in government that are frustrating. I don't like paying my taxes and I don't like paying my water bill, but it's something that I do because I'm a responsible citizen. And so there's a balancing act there, trying to deal with people.
So you are growing up, you're umping. You probably had no idea that was even a part of municipal.
I had no. I played. I was a decent baseball player. I was on the all-star team. I played travel ball, all those things. I actually coached my little brother's youth team when I was like 13 because no other parents stepped up. But yeah, it was one of those where I got offered the job because I was a halfway decent baseball player. So
I love it. So you're growing up, you end up at IU, you're going to, even in your undergrad, I think be a part of the O'Neill School of Public Environmental Affairs. What did you study in your undergrad and what was the draw? Did you know what you wanted to do when you went into IU or were you just kind of an open canvas?
yeah, so I only applied to IU, and if I hadn't gotten in, I either would have gone to Ivy Tech or I probably would have joined the military. I wasn't ready to spread my wings away from home yet. And so that was the kind of the best option there, which is very fortunate. It's a very good university. It just kind of ended up on my doorstep. But when I first started, I actually was a business student, and I was taking business classes. I thought I wanted to go into accounting. Realized pretty quickly that I didn't like it. I ended up taking a class over at the School of Public and Environmental Affairs called Urban Problems and Solutions. It was taught by the late great Orville Powell. He's kind of a legend in local government management and in city management. He was an older gentleman at that time, and it was a class I was really interested in. I really liked Orville, and he convinced me to switch my major and jump over to the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. So in undergrad, I studied policy analysis. I focused on tax policy, which is not the most interesting topic, but something that interested me. And that's kind of how the ball got rolling.
What a fascinating, again, this is what I love about the journey is you're kind of like, I think I'll do some business, think I'll, trying to figure it out. And all of a sudden you take some classes, you're like, this isn't it. And then just randomly, right, you go take a class over in the school that you probably didn't think at poli sci, what is this weirdness? And then you take it and you're like, okay, interesting. And again, what fascinates you in this tax policy thing, it was probably like a dud to many other people, but it captured you. And so that's a part of the journey. I just want to encourage young people, don't get so focused on, I got to have it all figured out. I need to know what I'm going to major in. Just go. And I think that's the whole thing of college that we've kind of lost. Like, you're supposed to have the plan already by the time you get there. And that's not what college is about. College is about you learning yourself, trying different things. I don't think you should be declaring majors until you try some things and actually see, is this what you like? Because the worst thing, especially nowadays with college being 6 figures of chaos, like, the last thing you need is to get a degree in something you don't want to actually participate in.
Yeah, I've found local government to be very fulfilling. I really enjoy the work. I enjoy the projects. I really like being part of something from the beginning of a process to the end of the process. I get to help design the trail, or I get to help design the basketball court. I get to talk about where it should go. I get to find the funding, and then I'm at the ribbon cutting. And I think there's some careers where you don't get to be all of that. You're just kind of a cog in a machine. I've never felt like that in local government.
That's why I love local government, is because the government of the people, everything you do automatically touches people. It's not like state, federal, where you work on something and then you finally get it passed, 4 iterations later, but then you never really see it touch people because that's not where you live. You're away in the capital, or in the, you are right among, like, you get to see it tomorrow if it actually works, and all the issues and all the wins. And so it's great. Let's talk about, is you, because I think you do your undergrad and then you go right into your MPA there at IU. So why did you choose to go right into your MPA? And was it clear that you kind of wanted to jump into local government working for cities?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to jump into local government. I actually took an 8-month hiatus between undergrad and grad school. I was competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the time, and I was doing some pro shows and kind of competing more at a professional level. So I was working a restaurant job, and I kind of gave the professional jiu-jitsu run for like 8 months. I was driving all over the United States and sleeping in the back of my car to make $200 on the weekend and stuff like that. Just kind of living a little bit of a wild life for 8 months doing that. And then I knew that I was going to need to go back and get my MPA to be in positions that I wanted to be in. And so it was an easy transition over for me. I took it actually took me 4.5 years to get through undergrad because I made that major switch there, and I was working full time while I was doing it and competing. So it was one of those where I wasn't getting 18 credit hours every semester. I was kind of on the lower end of the full time student track. So that's how I ended up going to grad school.
April is National County Government Month. It's a time to recognize the amazing work counties do to keep our communities running. From public safety and courts to health services, infrastructure, and everything in between, counties carry an enormous responsibility, and they do it in ways most people never see. And right now, one of the biggest conversations happening across county and local government is how artificial intelligence can help support that work. You know who's helping lead that conversation in local government? That's right, it's Tyler Technologies. Tyler's been helping counties and local governments apply AI in some significant ways, streamlining routine tasks, improving access to information, and helping staff spend more time focused on serving their communities. To help leaders understand what's possible, Tyler has released a brand new ebook. It's called AI for Impact: Proven Results for Government. It highlights inspiring examples of organizations already using AI to strengthen operations, to improve insights, and to make government services easier for residents to navigate. The best part, that ebook is free. You can download it today at tylertech.com/winter. Again, that's tylertech.com/winter. Now, back to the conversation. Okay, this is a great story because it's a different side of kind of the coin than we get. Now, this reminds me of, I had on Ifo Peely. He's a city manager, West Valley, Utah, I think is where he's at. He's in Utah. And he was a professional, NFL football player. He's one of a known defensive or offensive lineman, defensive lineman, I think. Ifo, I can't remember. So it's something, a huge guy. And so his whole thing was, he kind of wanted to do city, but then the NFL's calling him back and he's kind of in and out. And then finally he goes, I love local government. This is what I want to do. And so he said, no, they were trying to get him back. I think New England was trying to get him back to play. And he's like, nope, all in. And so, but you're on the other side of the spectrum. It's not like you've got the NFL with $1 million contracts you're saying no to. You're in the grind of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I kind of want to dig into this because my whole thing is work-life balance. Work-life balance is BS. I don't believe in balance whatsoever. I believe in intention. And your story has some pretty radical intention because you've got the single mom work ethic. We're going to go, we're working while we're going to school. We're also, if you're making time, it's not like you're dabbling in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you're competing, trying to see, am I going to become pro? And if you follow, what's the big, I think Ultimate Fighter right now, but what's the whole?
The UFC and all those
the UFC,
like MMA guys. Yeah.
When you think of even UFC, that's one of the things that's talked about all the time is like these guys don't seem to be making the money. It seems to be kind of the machine makes all the money and they get, especially getting the crap beaten out of them. So talk about, go into that a little bit. But how'd you get into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and what was it like to, compete and go to school and, do life? What was that like?
Yeah, so the way I got into it was after my senior year of high school, I was playing rugby and I graduated early. And I had two guys that I was training with for rugby that were also doing some cage fights. And so I didn't have a group to work out with really anymore. I had always been an athlete through my childhood and I always been on like a team sport. So they invited me in to, take boxing and do some jujitsu. And we were pretty much doing it out of some guy's garage. And so I was doing that and just, training on and off for about 6 months. And then when I got into IU actually has a really good rec program. And one of the things you can do there is you can take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a class credit. It's like a 1 credit hour, twice a week, 1 hour kind of thing. And so I did that and really enjoyed it. I also took judo, which is kind of like wrestling, but in a gi. And so I enjoyed that. And so when my freshman year was up, I actually found a local gym and it was like all in on it. I was there every day. I was coming in early and training with the guys in the morning and all of that. And then I ended up kind of sticking with it and was part of the judo club and the IU jiu-jitsu club. I actually was the treasurer for the judo club for a little while. And, through undergrad, it was something that I really enjoyed competing. I missed being on a team or having those events coming up, for football or baseball or whatever. And so it was a good way for me to, force myself to be in the gym, still lifting weights and working out and doing all of that. And I was really fortunate. I found a local jiu-jitsu gym with a really good coach and some really good competitors. And I was just all in. So I was actually scheduling my IU classes around when I could train. And so I would go in for like a 6 a.m. training session. Then I'd have 8 a.m. Classes right after. I would go back and do my strength and conditioning, go back to campus, do a class. And then I would hit the judo class at 3:00. And it was just kind of a constant thing there. And it just kind of followed me. It really evolved because I ended up becoming a coach. I ended up teaching a kids judo class. And so it was a real full circle for me. But I really, really enjoyed the sport and it's just kind of stuck with me. It's kind of the big point of my life now is doing that.
I love it. I love it. And it's so different if you're listening and you've never participated in jiu-jitsu or you haven't really followed it. It's much different than I grew up and everyone wanted to take karate and be, Kung Fu, be Bruce Lee or be Chuck Norris, and again, I think those are great programs to get kids active. but the belt systems are pretty like, you go and do the testing and then you get the belt or you don't get the belt. Jiu-jitsu is a different world, and you can be amazing and they're just going to teach you some patience to wait and wait and wait. What did that, again, at this time, what are you, what does that look like in the process of developing it? Because again, most people, I think, what is it? Am I wrong? Blue belts have to teach. It's like part of the thing to get your next belt. You need to be like, again, teaching the kids class. You need to be showing. You need to be competing. That's one of the things. I have a friend who's in it, and he can't really advance because he doesn't have time to compete. And so it's one of these. It's a different kind of world that's teaching you more than just the skills of self-defense, fighting. There's a lot of mindset, a lot of internal awareness and growth. That's why I think it's such a great activity. I haven't done it because I know I only have two speeds in life. I'm either not in or all in. And I know, just like you said, I would revolve my entire life around it, and I don't have the time. And I do, as a public speaker, I don't think I can show up to events with black eyes.
Yeah. I've shown up to many meetings with black eyes or a broken nose, but just to speak on it, it took me 12 years to get to my black belt. I advanced pretty quickly through the early belts and got to purple, which is where it's like, okay, there's guys who are doing it full time at purple belt if they're competing on the international scene. I spent 6 years as a purple belt. I mean, my belt was falling apart. It was ratty and tattered and all of that. And I really had some local success. I was winning some state championships and a lot of the locals, but on the international scene, I was always just kind of middle of the road guy. And then I ended up having, about 4 years ago, I had a ton of success at brown belt, and I won a Pan American title, and then that led to me getting my black belt. And so it was, it's interesting how things in your life line up, because I became a black belt and then I got the town manager job. And so I've had to step back a little bit from my jiu-jitsu career with being a town manager. It's a little bit more involved than my previous jobs for municipalities.
Well, I love this because, again, this isn't just something you did in college while you seem to fill up all your time, but this is something you did as your career progresses. So let's talk about that. While you had mentioned, while you're at IU, you're working, you've got server, dishwasher, you've got teaching assistant, you worked at the Wonder Lab Museum of Science. What's the Wonder Lab Museum of Science? This sounds...
Yeah, so this is a fun one, actually, because this is full circle as well. So the Wonder Lab started in Bloomington as like a traveling science show to elementary schools. So they would show up and do like science experiments and kind of hands-on activities with kids in the elementary schools. And one of the elementary schools that they would come to regularly was Child's Elementary, where I was at. And so then they got a hard location. And again, it was a place that, like, in Bloomington, that people would rent out for like birthdays and stuff like that. So I went there, a lot when I was a kid, just for birthdays, or in the summer, your mom would take you. And then when I was looking for internships, they were one of the only paid internships that was inside of Bloomington. And I went, well, I used to be at the Wonder Lab. Let's see what this is about. And so I went in and interviewed for it, and I ended up becoming like the front desk person for a summer. And it was great because it was like 3 blocks away from my jiu-jitsu gym. So I would leave straight from there and go teach my kids judo class, get my workout in, and then be able to train in the night class for my training. And then they offered to bring me back the next summer, and I became kind of like the floor manager. So anytime any of the exhibits would break or kids were messing with them and they didn't know how they worked and all that, it was pretty much my job to walk around and interact with the guests and their parents, and kind of show them how to use the experiments and all of the different things in the museum. It was really fun, honestly. It was there was a couple, they had a huge climbing mechanism that, like, kids would climb up this like leaf structure, and it had things about insects in it. And sometimes the kids would get trapped in the top and get scared, and their mom would be yelling at them from down there. And I'd have to climb up and put this kid under my arm and climb back down. But it was a great experience. It's a really weird, quirky, fun thing for the kids.
I love it. And I love, again, these experiences where you grow up participating and then now you're working and leading and giving back. How cool. While I assume, you correct me here, while you're doing your MPA, a lot of MPA programs require an internship. I know that you are an intern in Plainfield, the town of Plainfield. Was that while you were in the MPA or was that afterwards?
Yeah. So what happened with my MPA program was a couple of the local government classes actually bring in town managers to teach a class, once or twice a semester. I've actually gone back now and taught that class a few times since being a town manager. But there was, three or four town managers that came in one semester, and I knew that there was a requirement for internship. I knew that this was something I wanted to do with my career. And so I just kept blast emailing these town managers until one of them offered me a position. I wanted to be within driving distance. Obviously, as like a working class student, I didn't have the financial means to be. Some of my classmates were in Washington taking unpaid internships and things like that. That just really wasn't in the books for me. So I just pretty much contacted every single professionally managed town within an hour of Bloomington and just went and did interviews. And I had an offer from a different community. And then when Plainfield offered theirs to me, it was much more holistic. It was really, hey, you're going to be dealing with all of the departments and you're going to be getting out of town hall. And it's not just paperwork, it's a real experience. And I thought, for what was best for me in my career, I really need to get out there and be doing the work.
I love this. And these are the kind of internships that not only do I want to promote, but I want to encourage other towns to learn. It's one of the things we're looking at putting together. My company is a kind of a virtual conference where we share where people who are doing great internships share. How do we do that? Because it is a benefit. Now, it is work. Putting on great internships is work. It's a lot easier to just throw you into a closet and say, well, you're in City Hall, figure it out, right? That's not going to help, though, prepare you. I love this, that you get to touch different things, different departments, and really see how a city works. And that's the great thing about, you kind of mentioned it before, but the beauty of municipal work, local government, city or county, is that I really believe you can take any area of interest and find a place for you to thrive. And that's the beauty. If you go and get a poli-sci degree, get an MPA, come into town, come into municipal work, you can float between departments and find out which one and what area actually fits your skill set and your passions the best. And there's a lot of different, your story is going to be, you're going to be in some different things. Talk about, what was that internship like? How did it open your eyes to see really now all of a sudden what a municipality does?
Yeah, so I'll have to give a shout out here. Tony Perona and Nate Thorne were the assistant town managers. When they hired me, it was actually interesting. Tony Perona is a black belt in karate, and he said that was what stuck out on my resume. He goes, I know the amount of discipline it takes to do this, so I know that you're somebody that's going to show up on time and do the work. And so again, I like when people put an interesting thing about themselves on their resume because sometimes it makes you memorable. But when I took this, position, they were like, "What are you interested in?" They're like, "Here's some things that we need you to work on." They wanted to develop a town app, so that we could push out information to the community. They knew that there was some needs for some vehicle switch outs in their police department. They needed somebody to do the analysis, all of that. I'm very good with Excel sheets. So, I went and spent time with police officers driving in their vehicles, talking to them about what was working great with these vehicles, what they would like to see different. Really, they were crammed on space because they were in Impalas. So, I went and looked at what's the next greatest thing available. And then you have to kind of shop those three options. And they ended up settling for Chevrolet Tahoes. And they wanted all-wheel drive. The council wanted to buy the two-wheel drives. I ended up convincing the council the all-wheel drives were the way to go because the Kelly Blue Book value resale was better at the end, those sort of things. But really also there were some things like, I didn't know anything about the parks department and what they were doing. So one day I got a hold of the parks crew guy and just went and was mowing the lawns at the baseball fields and dragging the fields and all that. Again, kind of a full circle thing. It started as an umpire, now I'm dragging the fields, right? And I really give a shout out to Plainfield on this because they really let me determine what interests me and gave me the freedom to kind of go spend some time places. So I spent a whole day in the 911 call center. I spent an entire 24 hours at a fire station, spent the night with all of the guys and, watching movies and doing the cookout and then going on calls and all of that. Really, it really helped because they ended up offering me a job after I graduated, and I was in charge of the fleet and facilities. So I had already been through all of the facilities. I had ridden on a lot of the vehicles. I had talked to the people who were using them, and it really worked out.
It's such an amazing opportunity. Again, like you say, come full circle. Now you're looking at Parks and Rec from the other side going, oh man. And just to say again, just to encourage, if you're young, listening to this, go get a job working for parks. Go get a job. There's all kinds of jobs, especially
I hire
during the
5
summer.
summer help every year. I hire 5 summer help. I put 1 or 2 of them in the street department, 1 or 2 of them in the parks department, and one or 2 in the water department. And you know what I've been doing really is I've been hiring wrestlers because
Yeah.
I know they're going to be outside. I know it's going to be hot. I know it's going to be miserable. I've been hiring good old country boy wrestlers. They've been working out great. It's like I get a full 8 hours out of them. They never complain. They're on time. They know all the things, right? And just to mention on the internship thing again I was the first intern that Plainfield had. And I worked out to becoming a full-time employee. I worked there for 5 years, kind of worked my way up through the organization before taking this town manager job. And we ended up hiring 2 more of my interns later. So their current budget analyst was one of our interns, and then the gentleman who ended up taking my job was one of the interns as well. And so really, when that happened, I was in a position where they were kind of putting the interns under me and were like, "Hey, you're in charge of this guy. Give him the same experience you had, and have him, some of it's grunt work, and then some of it is really inexperience."
Well, I think a couple things. It's what you make of it, right? A city can only do so much. You got to step up. And that's why I always encourage, because most of you share the leaders who I have on that are dynamic leaders now. They didn't wait to be told what to do. They didn't wait for someone to, they kind of said, what can I do? They were the one who tried to, because again, leaders are busy. And if you just kind of wait in the corner, you might wait twiddling your thumbs. If you're looking for opportunities and what can I be a part of, going out and doing stuff. And it seems like you set the good standard. So then they wanted to do, hey, this intern was actually a help to us. Let's bring on more.
Yeah, well, and so I was fortunate too. They actually kept me on to do some HR analysis and some financial work while I was still in grad school for my final year. So I would go up there on Fridays when I didn't have classes and do that work, and I was doing some of it remotely. And while I was a grad student, I was also teaching healthcare economics at IU. I was the grad assistant for that class, so always kind of a busybody doing all of that. Um, but really, I have this talk with my department heads here too, is don't bring me a problem and no solution. I want you to identify the problem. And if you're having trouble deciding on the solutions, that's when we can have the discussion. But if you just come to me with a problem, I don't know why you're in this position. Right. And I think it's the same thing in this internship that I had with Plainfield I, it's hard to be the town manager and get out on the road with the police and be at the fire station and do all of those kind of things because you have all these economic development projects, big infrastructure projects. And so having me as kind of a gopher where I could go. And I think as an intern, you're easier to talk to from the people that are lower on the organizational chart. Whereas if they're talking to the town manager, it sounds like they're griping. Right. Whereas I'm here and they're just discussing their work and challenges they have and being able to help them and develop some solutions to issues really did help me get a good amount of experience. I really think benefited Plainfield. So it was a good mutual benefit.
Let me ask you something. If culture really matters in your organization, why isn't it being built with intention? Not discussed, not delegated, actually built and then sustained with just as much intention. Here's the hard reality. Culture isn't what your organization believes. It's what your leaders tolerate, reward, and repeat. In most cities and counties, they say culture matters while leaving it completely to chance. That's why this April, we are doing something different. Inside the Municipal Leadership Development Circle, you know it as the MLDC, we're kicking off a 3-month deep dive into organizational culture, weekly content, conversations with leaders across North America, and live training sessions from the Leadership and Culture program. We're going to work through the ideas and insights from books like Turn the Ship Around, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and Unreasonable Hospitality. But more importantly, we're going to translate those insights into how you actually lead your team in the unique context of local government. For the first time, we're opening this up in a big way. We're offering 500 memberships to the MLDC for just $500. That gives you full access to the MLDC, the weekly content, and the vibrant community of leaders from across North America. But here's where it's really over the top. We're giving 3 months of insider access to the Leadership and Culture program. That's a $2,500 value. We're doing this because transforming City Hall from the inside out isn't just optional, it is necessary, and it's necessary right now. But here's the catch. We kick off our first live training session on the topic of culture on Thursday, April 16th. And so once the 500 spots are gone, they're gone. So if you're ready to stop talking about culture and to actually start building it, I want you to head over to haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC, or simply just use the link in the show notes. Secure your spot today. Now, back to the conversation. Awesome. You graduate with your MPA, and then Plainfield hires you. Let's talk about the roles you play. You're going to be the fleet and facilities manager, then the municipal facilities and a project manager. You're going to spend, again, 5 years there after you graduate working in these roles now. Tell us about Plainfield. I know it's, I think, southwest of Indianapolis. It's near the airport there. Tell us a little bit about the city. And again, I think this episode's going to air during National Public Works Week. And I think, again, when you're talking about facilities and fleet, I remember having Ryan Blank on. He's the assistant public works director in York County in South Carolina. And he goes, man, people do not understand the cost. I mean, you can kind of think about the cost of infrastructure, of what it takes to actually pave a road. Like, people have no idea. When it comes to these vehicles that, like, again, I think you're going to talk about a street sweeper. Like, people just have no concept of the cost, but yet we want those services, right? If there's a pothole, we want that to be fixed. Well, guess what? Johnny isn't going to just go scoop up some gravel from the riverbed and bring it over and fix it. Like, these take tools now, and talk to us about your time in Plainfield, to give us a little scope of this city and what you did there in light of fleet and facilities.
Yeah. So just one point of information here is, in Indiana, we have cities and towns. Cities have mayors and towns have town managers. So I personally chose to be in a town that was professionally managed. So it's the town of Plainfield, town of Yorktown, whereas cities have mayors. It's a little weird system here in Indiana. But so I was in the town of Plainfield, great community. It's in Hendricks County. It is just west of Indianapolis, like southwest kind of corner. It is right bumped up against the Indianapolis airport, which is obviously a huge economic hub for Indianapolis and the state of Indiana as a whole. It also has I-70 passing through it, just underneath it. And so it became a large commercial hub there. It really was like industrial facilities. It's a lot of like Amazon warehouses, Walmart warehouses, huge warehouse facilities there. But it's a community that's about 33,000 people, very good schools, very low crime rate, kind of all the things you would want. But then it has this huge industrial section kind of off on one side of it. And so they have a lot different financial scenario than a lot of the communities in Indiana, because of their positioning, right? Is that with all of that industrial growth and all of those large warehouses, they have a very large tax base, which allows for money to flow into municipal services that you don't see in a lot of other communities, which is people don't understand that, right? Like, the big talk now is data centers, and everyone is super against data centers, and I can understand why, but they also don't really see the other side of it, where it's like those taxes that go to building parks and trails and maintaining the roads and police services and all of that, and can push your tax rate down, right? And so it's obviously a balancing act there. I do have a fun side story for you about Plainfield. If you wanted
Oh
to
yeah.
pull up your Google machine, you can look up Walmart warehouse fire, Plainfield. It is the largest fire that has ever occurred in the state of Indiana. It was at one of our warehouses. It was a very unfortunate event. Nobody lost their lives. So kudos to all of the first responders and the employees in there. But I was working that day and I had my little, public safety radio going off, and we could see the fire. You could see it from space. That's how big this fire. Are you seeing the pictures of it right now?
Yeah, I'm saying it says here there's going to be an actual documentary is set for release called "When the Sky Turned Black." What in the world?
Yes, yes. So I get a call from the town manager while that fire is going on. And I mean, I can see it out of my window. And he goes, I need you to feed 300 public safety personnel and find bathrooms for them in the next 2 or 3 hours. Thanks. And hangs up the phone. Because I was the guy at town hall that was like the gopher, right? Like he's like, Chase will figure it out. Because I mean, they have all these other news organizations are showing up. I mean, all these problems. And so I ended up getting a hold of the admin assistant. I was like, everybody on the Chamber of Commerce list, I need you to get me whoever serves food, and I need you to contact them and tell them to give us as much food as they could possibly give us now. Chick-fil-A, pizza place, Subway, whoever it is. And then I got a group chat going with the streets crew and the parks crew. And it was like, parks crew, I need tables, chairs, pavilions, all of this. Streets crew, I need people who I can text to go pick up the food, and I need water at this location. And then I just drove on site to try to coordinate all these services. And like there's issues you run into that you'll never know about, right? It's like, how do you order a portalet on like a Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon with no reservation? You can't. And so we had nowhere for our public safety people to use the restroom. So I had to get a hold of the people next door that had obviously evacuated and said, hey, I need to be able to use your bathroom facility. So we stationed a police officer there. And then I just had parks guys with golf carts driving back and forth with the firefighters to get them to the bathroom. But I mean, that's one of those experiences where obviously it's an unfortunate event, but was a great learning experience for me, because it's like there's no playbook on how to deal with this. You just have to be willing to kind of shake and move and come up with solutions on the fly. So I was out there dishing Chick-fil-A sandwiches out to firefighters off of a golf cart.
This is wild. So again, I've had numerous city town managers from Missouri and from Illinois, and just all over Iowa, who've talked about tornadoes and flooding. I mean, Kentucky, we had towns that were totally devastated. Again, you might think, well, I'm in a safe place. We don't have hurricanes or tornadoes. A fire can happen anywhere. And this fire, like you say, it tore through a 1.4 million square foot warehouse. It took 2 days and more than 300 firefighters to extinguish. This is at least the news article that's right here in front of my face.
There was probably 80 or 90 fire trucks out there, and they didn't put the fire out. The building burned down. I mean, and you start running into these issues. These aren't ones I had to deal with, but, do you keep spraying water on it when the water pressure starts dropping? I mean, we had to station people at water towers for overnights to make sure that the levels were correct, and that it was a really good test of the water system to make sure everything was working well. Unfortunately, it was. We actually found out that we could produce more water from our wells than we thought we could.
Wow. But see, these are the
municipality,
things.
You keep your tower relatively full, all of those kind of things. And then all of a sudden you have this huge usage that you've never had before. A great test of the system.
Yeah. Well, these are the things that make, again, your municipality. I always say you've got the day-to-day, and that alone is like, it's not like you just have, people sitting around twiddling their thumbs. You guys are busy doing the regular upkeep, providing the regular services. And then you have something like this. And it's the same thing. I was out in California right after the big fires out there in LA. And I did a thing, and those huge national news. And then you've got, all the fire response people, get the kudos, they came in, but you don't realize Public Works is right there municipalities right there. You got to reprogram traffic lights. Think about the people exiting that area. You got on the spot, like you said, porta potties, food. Who's going to take care of these guys? Because it's not like they're just machines, just battery operated Elon Musk
and I mean, they're
machines.
close to a fire. They're sweating. They're doing all the things. The other interesting thing that happened about that was when all the people exited the building, a lot of them didn't have their cell phones or their keys. So their cars now are being burnt up by this fire. And then they have family members who are arriving who are obviously worried about their family members. We had to transport those people off site to a different pickup location and essentially do like have Bob walk up in front of them and we have a loudspeaker and we're like, is Bob's wife here? Okay, Bob, go to your wife. We had to borrow buses from the school and transport these people off site so that we could have a pickup site for them.
It's again, it's the same thing where in LA, right? You have this moment, this magnitude moment that's on the news. It's days. Again, this fire in your place, it takes 2 days to.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you said,
I think it burned for 3 total, but it was already gone by the 3rd day. It was just smoking.
And that's the thing I've known. I've put some brush fires in my backyard, and those things smoke, forever. I mean, that was the whole LA fire. They say that now it was caused because there was a fire a week before that was so hot. It was still dormant. They put it out on top, but it was still dormant. It was still going underneath. And so my point here is that also now you've got a whole mess to clean up. Now you got to figure out, how do you build back? It's not like you're just going to have a wasteland of, millions of square footage. Like, you got to figure out what's next. And guess what? It takes a municipality to be a part of that process. And so, man, what an opportunity to learn, not just the daily work, but the response, the emergency response realities and all that it takes. That's not just fire. Your whole city had to be a part of the response to manage that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you weren't technically a person that would have been assigned to that, you got an assignment, right? Whether it was from the town manager, like calling me, or me calling you, going, "Hey, you're in charge of water bottles."
So wild. Well, we could go on for a while, I'm sure, about this story. You become the town manager of Yorktown, Indiana, which is where you are now, in January of 2023. When in your journey? Was it when you were in your MPA? Was it while you're in Plainfield? When do you all of a sudden get introduced to this position of town management? And when was it like, I think that's what I want to do?
Yeah, so it was actually when I switched over from the School of Business to the School of Public and Environmental Affairs is when I was first introduced to it. Orville Powell, who was the one who convinced me to switch my major, was a city manager in the South. He was there during desegregation. So he had some wild stories of being in city management during all of that, right? I mean, sweetheart of a guy, one of the best characters I've ever met in my life. And I really aspired to be like someone like him. He really cared about the work. He cared about the people. He knew the impact. But I wasn't sure that's where I wanted to go yet. And then once I made the move to grad school, I kind of made my mind up. I had dabbled a little bit in some federal stuff and was like, I don't think there's, you make an impact at the federal level, but you really don't get into the nitty gritty and you don't get to see things all the way through. I feel like kind of a cog in a machine, where I didn't want to be that. And so that was kind of what led me down this path. Right. And so I knew the, previous town manager of Yorktown, my predecessor, Pete Olson. I consider him a mentor and a friend. He actually runs a book club for the Municipal Manager Association, even though he's no longer a municipal manager, he's now a consultant. And I was like the young guy that tagged along and did the book club with all of the town managers. Just thought, hey, this is some career development stuff that I could be surrounded by people a lot smarter than me and who have a lot more experience than me. And while we're reading through this book, we're talking about it. And if they're all leadership books or related to municipal services. And so I thought, hey, this is a good opportunity for me to kind of get my foot in the door and talk to these folks. And when he was ready to step down for being the town manager, the position had kind of just beaten him up a little bit too much, I think. And he contacted me and said, "Hey, I'm putting in my resignation today. Do you have your resume ready?" And so he had kind of seen me making the effort and being in the room and doing all those things and knew the things I was doing at Plainfield, and put me up for a recommendation. So I went through the hiring process and had to do all the interviews and all of that, but it worked out in my favor.
And so in January 2023, you become the town manager. This is Yorktown is northeast now of Indianapolis. So you flip flop to the other side. It's
Right.
kind of between Anderson and is it Muncie? I think is the name.
Yeah. So Muncie is where Ball State University is. And so Yorktown is actually like the nice suburb of Delaware County. So like the people who make like a lot of money working for the big industries in Muncie or who work for Ball State University, many of them live in Yorktown because we have a top 20 school in the state. We have super low crime rate. We have like great parks. It's still got like a small town feel to it. um, it's kind of funny because people keep going, well, we're a small town. And I'm like, we're 12,000 people. We're the 75th biggest community in the state. I think we're bigger than 9 counties in Indiana by population. And I kind of have to remind people of that every once in a while because they seem to remember when the town was 3,000,
Yeah,
like, hey, that's gone. you know?
exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
well, tell us what was it like then to be, what was like your first year like being the town manager? Now and this is why I like to highlight this specific position because a town manager, I call it, you are the lightning rod on the municipal tightrope. Fighting the three-headed snake, because yes, other positions, directors, assistant, town managers, they interact with residents and other departments and elected officials, but no one is like the town manager, where right you're in charge of all the departments. You are the face to the residents. You are trying to herd all the cats of the elected officials, and guess what? Those three heads of those unique snakes all have multiple heads, because it's not like your electeds all think alike, and it's not like your residents all think alike, and definitely your department heads don't think alike. They're all fighting for dollars and resources. And so what was it like being the town manager for the first time in Yorktown?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, when I first got this job, I was the second youngest town manager in the state, and the other one managed a town I'd never heard of, that was very small, right? And so I was kind of stepping into some big shoes. The town manager was a very well-known person throughout municipal management in the state. I knew that coming in. I had a very good job in Plainfield. I actually had to have a lot of talks with people in my life, some of my jujitsu buddies and my mom and even my boss at the time. And, they're like, this is a great opportunity for you, right? And I'm like, right, but I have a comfortable gig that I'm familiar with in Plainfield. And so, we did the negotiations and all that. Everything came back the way I wanted it. And so I ended up making the move to Yorktown. I feel like I chose Yorktown, right? Is like I didn't need a job. Um, and I wanted to be in a community that was growing, that had good things happening for it. And I came to a place that was great to be at. So I made that choice. I tell people that all the time. It's like if you have a frustrated resident or someone who's frustrated with you, you're like, I chose to be here. I didn't need the job. I wanted to be here. And so, yeah, when I took it, obviously kind of baby faced, I grew the facial hair out for a reason. Was I kept getting like the "listen here, boy," or "let me tell you, son" kind of thing. And it's like, hey, I'm in my 30s and I'm responsible for a whole municipality. Um, yeah, the herding cats thing is really what it is. Is first off, you have to learn your staff, you have to learn the operations of the town. Just learning street names. I mean, we're responsible for 64 miles of roads. I'm not from here. Having to learn neighborhood names, kind of know who the big players are, put yourself in those rooms, make those good first impressions. And then you mentioned, trying to herd your council together, right? I've been fortunate. I've had a council that's very agreeable to me. I have very good working relationships with them. But sometimes there's contentious things in those relationships, right? Whether it's somebody in their family doesn't like you or something, there's not always agreement. Um, which is why town managers should have severance packages in their contracts. I will continue to harp on this for all town managers and future town managers is if you are negotiating a contract, you should have a severance package because it allows you to make the correct decisions and the morally correct decisions without worrying about your job. And it's like you have a skill set that you can go get work somewhere else, but you shouldn't be making decisions based on a fear of losing your job. I think that's
and
a
like
very important thing.
Absolutely. And like you said, especially when you're the town manager who's not from there, what happens is it's like, I was a pastor for a number of years, and this wasn't my story, but I worked with and counseled a lot of pastors who would come in to, become a lead pastor in a place, and they weren't from there. And the issue is this: you're now the lightning rod. You're the lightning rod of all good. And so you get a lot of praise. But if something goes wrong, guess what? It didn't matter if it was a different pastor, there's a conflict. You're now you're the person who didn't take care of it, and you're the bad guy. And especially in local, most of the people working for the city are probably residents that live there. And if, city clerk or assistant somebody got fired or had to be let go, you become the bad guy. And again, it is a political, you're not, the role is apolitical, but you are in a hyper political world. And maybe you speak to that
political environment everywhere you go.
Everywhere. And since COVID, like you said, there's incivility. There's just a natural disposition towards skepticism. It seems now with skepticism and pessimism. It's like, well, look at what Doge is doing. I got to go down and be Doge to my city hall. And it's like, guys, like there's a lot more transparency at the local level too, but you've got to be involved. I mean, that's the sad thing is I always say, I say it's sad that the turnout for voting at your local level is so abysmal, and people are like, I got to vote for this national election. It's like, dude, I live in Seattle. It does not matter. We already know Seattle's voting, one way. It's voted one way forever. It doesn't really matter. And the reality is, my local government has way more impact on my everyday life than the national scene. And yet we're just, because of media and hoopla, we get roped into this. And so talk about how even in Indiana, we think, oh, it's Indiana. You're all just calm people chewing on grain stalks. And I'm sure you've had the incivility. You've had the things where, especially over now, a handful of years as a town manager, right? There's things that come up. You've talked about data centers. There's always something it's going to rile up someone because people don't want their comfort, right? Either they don't want the comfort disrupted, or they want things to just stay the same. So talk about what's that been like as a town manager. How do you build
cohesion or coalition or collaboration. Yeah. All the co words, right?
All the co's. How do you build that? And how do you also maintain a separation so you don't get so emotionally involved? Because I wonder if that's one of the things, and why I do a lot of counseling with town managers across the nation, is you get so passionate about the people you're serving, but that passion comes with emotion. And when people don't see it the way you see it, with, again, professionalism, they just see it from their little sliver and they get upset, and they can thwart, right, issues or the forward movement. How do you stay grounded so you just don't get swung to and fro on the waves of disappointment?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think we all struggle with. When you talk to town managers, we all talk about our concerned citizen pages on our Facebook, where, you have one or two citizens who are against everything. We have a term for them. We call them citizens against virtually everything. Cave people. I'm sure they love that term. But they can rile up a small but loud group of people, and people think that's the general population, when in reality it's not. So if you sat there all day and just looked at the Facebook page, you would get really down on yourself and you would let it get to you. But I have found that the best way for me to really help with that civility and build that cohesion and just that willingness to collaborate is getting out in the community and really trying to meet the people who are actually shakers and movers and who actually care, right? So being involved in the Chamber of Commerce, I go to every one of their meetings, right? I meet with the Chamber president regularly. They actually do our free concert series right behind me here at Town Hall. And so I think getting out into those scenarios really helps build those relationships with residents and, HOA presidents, and just, the local dentist and whoever else it is. And what I found, actually, this is a little thing that I've told a couple people. When I first took this job, they had the free concerts. We have 15 of them every summer. I would come and go to them, sit down in a little lawn chair, have a couple beers, hang out with my water crew always comes out, hang out with some people, sit around some business owners, whatever. Well, I found that people are always walking up to me and talking to me, just wanting to have, just little discussions about things that were going on. Really, really easygoing conversations, because when you're talking to somebody face to face, not on Facebook, it's a lot easier of a conversation because you don't say the same things you would behind a keyboard. But what I found is I felt like the people were always talking down on me because I was sitting down. And so I actually went out and bought a 2-seater lawn chair. And so now I have kind of you can sit down and chat during the concerts with the town manager. And it's really helped with the relationship building. And it's just, I don't want to seem like a person that's not accessible, right? It's like, you can call town hall and make a meeting with me. I was having problems where people just thought they should be able to get a hold of me immediately. And it's like, I have things going on, but I do want to hear from you, right? So if you want to schedule a meeting, 15, 20 minutes with my assistant, I'm happy to meet with anybody. Um, some people try to take advantage of that and think that they should get an hour with the town manager every month. And it's like, that's not possible. There's 12,000 of you, right? But the concert series really did help with that. And I've made an effort to, the school invites me to come be part of their science fair. I'm going to go meet with the kids and talk about science for an hour. So I think that's really good. And I think it really does help lower the temperature a little bit, because even if a parent's frustrated about their utility bill, seeing you at their kid's science fair and talking to their kid about their science project really makes it a more human experience.
It's such a good point, and it makes me think of, conversations with people like Jerry Gabrielatos up in Wisconsin. He used to do these town hall kind of out in the grocery stores. That's the case. And you might be listening, and you might be a city manager, and you go, man, I don't know. It's just, who has time? If you just sit in City Hall, it's going to be challenging. You got to go out. And I think that's what you're doing, is you're looking for, and I think that it's looking for the overlap. Like, you're probably going to go to the concert anyway. So why not buy a 2-seater and invite someone to come sit and, have some conversation, have some interaction. Makes you look like not just a stuffy person who lives. The thing is, it's the same thing with the Capitol here. I do a lot of work with I'm in Olympia, the capital city of Washington, just south of Seattle. And the Capitol's intimidating, right? It's built to be intimidating. It's built to be a place where, right, you have decorum and you have, we can go, it's just City Hall, it's just Town Hall. You're familiar with it. All your employees are familiar with it. But that familiarity is the curse of knowledge, which makes you think, everybody knows this. And no one does, right? They know they're on a level 1 or a 2, and you're on a level 10. It's the same thing with feel. The town hall feels intimidating. That place where you guys meet for all your town hall council meetings, it feels normal because you've been in there 1,000 times. It is totally intimidating for a resident who's never set foot in there and now has to speak, which is something they're not used to. It's easy to tap away on your keyboard and put a post anonymously. It's a different world when when the pressure's on. And so the more town managers can get out of the town hall into the people. And you might think, well, I'm an introvert and I don't have time. Schedule once a month. Start with that. Just something is better than nothing. And it might not be your natural inclination and your extrovert, you might not be an extrovert, but it will make a difference, I think, just like you've said, in making it feel, especially as an outsider coming in, it makes you feel known. It makes you feel human. I think that's where the biggest thing we need to do if we're going to fight this incivility, you got to become more human. That's why I love this podcast. Tell your story. Who are you? You're a person, and you're more than just a town manager. You got jiu-jitsu. You got, real life going on.
Yeah, and some of them are really low bar things, is I could drive through the drive-through at the local coffee shop and just get my coffee and be on my way. But I go out of my way to park my car, walk in, talk to the owner, see who's in there, maybe the local pastor's there or whoever, go shake their hand. If I haven't met them before, introduce myself. It's the same thing when we're doing projects. When we're out talking about a road project, I'm in the high-vis vest and all this. Sometimes you get someone who walks out on their front porch and they're kind of just watching. I make the effort to go walk over and introduce myself, tell them what's going on, ask them if they have anything, any questions, concerns. and just say, hey, we're at town hall. If you have something that comes up, feel free to stop by the second floor. If I'm not there, someone will help you. And I think that lowers it a little bit. And I think you have those opportunities almost daily, but we don't take full advantage of them. Another perfect example today was today's Earth Day. So my crew and I decided that we were going to spend an hour today going and picking up some trash on some of the roads that people seem to want to throw their bottles out on, right? And while we were down there, people were honking and waving, and it's good for them to see that, hey, every once in a while I throw on a high vis vest and go out and do the work with the crews.
And maybe I'd even throw in, if you have that person who always kind of wants to meet and chat, you might say, hey, why don't you join me? I'm going to go out and pick up some trash. And then you're kind of doing something while you have to take some of those meetings. And if they don't say yes, then you go, hey, that was the opportunity, right?
Yeah. Listen, a couple of the ones that frustrate me, I'd love to put them on trash pickup.
That's right. Right. Oh, we could talk forever. I want to be mindful of your time. I know you got things to do. Let's close with two things. First, I want to highlight this. You've won the Early Impact Award back at IU. You're actually going to go back and speak in commencement. I love, again, these full circle things. Talk about what that looks like, what IU has meant to you, and now this opportunity to go back and speak for.
Yeah. So obviously I've had to work on my speech for this, and it's something that's a little daunting of a task. But I was awarded the Early Impact Award from the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. And they asked me to come and speak at their commencement. And I said, sure, and they invited my mother, which was very nice of them. And they're taking mom out to dinner before the commencement. And so it really is a full circle thing. I've had a lot of those things come up where, like I said, I got to go back and teach a class that I met my first boss at, in local government, right? And that's how I got my internship. One of the times, the IU Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Club brought me back and had me teach a seminar, paid me to come down and teach a seminar, meet all the students, get to train with them. Very full circle. So it's really a humbling experience. The awards look great on your wall and all of that, but it really just verifies that you're out there, you're doing the work. I really find that the most fulfilling part is having the plaque on the wall is great. I love when I get to drive by it, a trail I helped construct and there's people walking on, or a road that I used to hit a pothole on is freshly paved. I mean, those are the things that really I enjoy. So the full circle thing with IU is great. It was a big part of my career. I was not, I would say, the most involved student. I wasn't in the Greek life. Obviously, I was working full time. I spent a ton of time in 095. It's a blue basement in their old rec center where they had judo and jiu-jitsu classes. And I probably spent more time there than I would recommend for anybody. I got ringworm in that basement. But it is very full circle, and it's going to be great to be at the commencement and just get to spend a night or two in Bloomington and kind of relive the college experience.
Well, maybe they'll surprise you and they'll name that dark blue room the Chase
with
Bruton
no
Lounge.
airflow. It had no air conditioning. I want named after you, the Bruton basement.
Yes, I love it. It's perfect. Oh, so good. Obviously, we didn't even talk about the IMMA, the Indiana Municipal Management Association. Again, past president, you were the president. Maybe just real quick, talk about what that means, because I always like to highlight network. Because again, you're the only town manager in Yorktown. It's not like, when I'm a business owner, I can go down to the Chamber of Commerce and meet other business owners and be encouraged. We can all tap each other and go, you know what it means. As a pastor, I can go to the pastor's breakfast. There's 100 churches, on every corner of the city. You're the only one. You got to go, to other cities and towns. And who has the time when you got plenty of things going on in your town? So the IMMA, that's why I always encourage people, be a part and make time for those conferences, for those events, because yes, there's the learning, but it's more so the network, just to feel like, man, I got people in my corner. So when things happen, or even just life happens, you have people who know what it's like to be in that very unique role.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that's how I got my position I'm currently in, was through the relationships I built through there. So in Indiana, the Mayors Association is much more powerful and large than the Municipal Managers Association, and so we're all part of kind of the same lobbying group. It's called Accelerate Indiana Municipalities, so we're kind of a subset of that. But there's about 30 or 40 core members in that group, and you build really good relationships with people. We really help each other out. You know, if I need an ordinance for chickens or something like that, I contact Ben Lips and go, "Hey, do you have one for this?" And the other thing is you know, we have things like the book club, which I think is really important. I think you can graduate college and then think you're going to stop learning, but there's things that I struggle with, that you know, you can always get better. I tell all my athletes this in jiu-jitsu is you need to identify your weak points. You need to be honest with yourself. You're never going to be the best at whatever your weak point is, but you definitely can make it not a hole in your life or in your jiu-jitsu game or, you know, whatever it is, right? And so having that book club, uh, sometimes we go over the book and sometimes it's a therapy session between all of the town managers, which is good. I mean, you need to be able to talk to people about these kind of things. And the things that happen in local government that frustrate you aren't the best things to bring home or into your relationship or something like that. Having people who have lived it really does help. And then we have the kind of education piece. We have an annual conference that's actually coming up next week. We all get together for like 2 days. You know, the afternoon before it, we go golfing, and then we do a whole day of learning. We bring in a lot of consultants just to talk on either, you know, new state laws that are passing or kind of the best practices and certain things. And then it's also kind of a chance for some of us to unwind. You know, we go have a nice dinner afterwards and all of that. And so I really appreciate the support I get from them. I consider a lot of them friends and mentors, and they're people that I reach out to when I have questions or I'm just struggling. They have a senior advisor who used to be a town manager. Her name's Tanya. She was actually on the hiring board for when I got hired here. Um, and she's somebody that if I'm having a rough patch, I call Tanya and ask her if we can go to lunch. Just kind of talks me through it and gives me some of her life advice and makes me feel like I'm not alone.
I love it. So good. The last thing I want to just chat about real quickly is because you mentioned it earlier when we were chatting before we hit record. Every January, I think you mentioned you get away to Europe. You take a trip. I like hearing about how do you personally just disconnect? How do you, especially because I would imagine it's hard. I knew it was hard for me to ever like do stay at home vacations. Like if I was on vacation, I had to get like out of the atmosphere because it was like everywhere I went, you're always a pastor. People always knew you, always wanted to talk to you, always wanted to chit chat about something. So what is it like to get out of even the States, and what has that done for you, and why do you do that?
Yeah, well, because I'm a busybody, all of my vacations are always jujitsu related. So in January, the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation has their annual European Championships. So one year I went and won third place at Rome, and I've competed in Paris, I've competed in Lisbon. And so I always have a couple of the buddies from my gym. It's normally my buddy Niles, Rob, and Steven, who go and compete with me. And then we'll stay wherever the tournament is for a couple days, and then we'll go and fly to one other country or take the train to one other country. So you get to see Vienna and Prague and all of that. And then it's kind of like a boys trip, you know. Some of them are married now and all of that. My buddy Steven has kids, so it's kind of his like one trip out away from the family. And then the other one that I do every year is I go to Japan every year. One of my best friends, Yoshi, lives in Japan. He runs a gym there. And so he comes and competes with us. So I've gotten to go and coach at his gym. Actually learning Japanese. I'm not very good. He says I speak like his 3-year-old daughter. But it is a great chance for me to just kind of get out. I get to go do something I love, compete. I always go visit other gyms. It's just a little chance for me to unwind. I'm always still connected. I'm always answering calls and emails and all those things. But I have a really good team here at Town Hall. So it does allow me like a week to just kind of, hey, I'm going to go do jujitsu and go explore Osaka, Japan.
I love it.
This is what happens when you're not married and you don't have kids. You can just decide that you're going to go do something for a week and you don't have to ask permission from anybody. So, yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Japan is on my, supposed to go to Tokyo a number of years ago for a big project.
My favorite city in the world.
It just seems like it just looks amazing. Oh man, what a life, Chase! What a great journey. Again, I look forward to connecting with you when I'm into Indiana next, and just watching what you do for impact. I just love these. I love that you just model just a hunger to get after it, right? And I think that's the unique thing about most of the people I interview on this podcast. There's just something unique about them that says yes to opportunity. They want to take on more. They're courageous. They're risk takers, and those are the people we need running cities. Not the people just going to mail it in, but the people who are actually saying we can be better. We can flourish. Flourish doesn't mean you have to grow in numerical size either. It just means what can we be? What can we do to make this place awesome? To make it a unique place that people want to be a part of, work, play, live, etc.
Yeah. And that's what really got me into local government is I just love some of those towns are quirky and they lean into it really hard. It's like, we have the world's biggest ball of yarn and that's everyone's leaned into. We got that, and so I love that. I like it about Yorktown is it's got its own character and feel and it's a good place to be.
Well, the full circle back when you were an ump and you learned the patience dealing with the angry people, I'm sure now has come full circle as you have to, I'm sure at sometimes deal with the anger, deal with the people who are riled up. But I don't know. I think if I was at the town hall in a meeting and I looked across and saw you, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, you'd be the last person I'd want to get angry with. I'd be afraid of the rear naked chokehold coming after me.
Yeah, the ears are always the dead giveaway. Don't mess with a guy with messed up ears.
That is. Oh, Chase, thank you for sharing your life, your leadership journey, your insights. It's been a great conversation today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The stories we share here on the Halting Winter podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.